Upon arrival at the bandits' ambush point, Robert surveyed the terrain with a grim satisfaction that bordered on professional detachment. This wasn't merely a clearing in an alien forest, it was a tactical landscape, a canvas upon which he would paint his strategies. His thoughts, a whirlwind of calculations and contingencies, drifted from the practicalities of setting up tripwire alarms to the unexpected efficiency of his newly equipped Fantasma Verde militia. He knew the consul would be abreast of the situation of his realm, and he, Robert Lake, was the one who was here to judge the state of his realm. The lantern's glow flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across Robert's face as he hunched over the parchment. Weeks had passed since the last interrogation, but the details remained fresh, etched into his mind like the lines on an old map. Kailas. The name tasted like ash. A merchant, cloaked in legitimacy, yet orchestrating a web of deceit and violence that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the Solarian Imperium's control over Vesperia. And Consul Valerus, sitting at the heart of it all, unknowingly targeted. Robert chewed on the end of his quill, a frown creasing his brow. The consul needed to know, needed every piece of this intricate puzzle. But how? This wasn't a standard field report. The Solarian Imperium had its own customs, its own bureaucratic intricacies. He'd seen enough of their formal decrees and official correspondence to know his usual direct, no-nonsense style wouldn't cut it. This was a culture steeped in tradition, in specific forms of address and presentation. A poorly worded report, or one that missed the mark culturally, could be dismissed, overlooked, or worse, misinterpreted. And Kailas was too dangerous for any misstep. He pushed away from the makeshift table, pacing the cramped room. He knew the information inside and out. He could recite Kailas's every contact, every route, every vile ambition. He could detail the grim realities of the interrogations, the subtle shifts in a prisoner's gaze that betrayed a lie, the carefully crafted questions that unraveled a hardened bandit's resolve. He'd extracted the truth from men who'd rather die than speak, but putting it into the consul's language? That was a different kind of battlefield. His gaze fell upon the rough-spun blankets on the cot. Vardis and Lycos. Good men, loyal soldiers, but officers? Not in the imperial sense. They understood the blunt realities of command, the simple orders of a skirmish. Asking them for advice on penning a formal report to a consul was like asking a fisherman for tips on navigating a desert. They'd give him practical advice on how to survive a fight, not how to win a political war with parchment and ink. He tried, of course. Vardis, he'd asked one evening, gesturing vaguely at a blank scroll, how does one address the consul in a fitting manner, for a matter of grave import? Vardis, ever practical, had merely grunted, polishing his sword. You tell him what he needs to know, Commander. Clearly. Quickly. Then you wait for his orders. He gestured with the blade. Actions speak louder than words, eh? Lycos had offered a more philosophical, though equally unhelpful, take. The consul is a man of action, Commander. He cares for results. Perhaps a concise summary? No flowery language. Just the facts. He'd shrugged. Unless it's for the Senate. Then you'd probably need poets. Robert sighed. No, the old soldiers, for all their wisdom on the battlefield, were no help here. He needed to understand the nuance, the unspoken rules of imperial correspondence. He needed to present Kailas not just as a threat, but as the threat, the one that struck at the very heart of Valerus's power. He, Robert, had stumbled upon a viper's nest, and he had to convince the consul, without sounding presumptuous or naive, to strike with overwhelming force. He picked up the quill again, his eyes scanning the empty page. He'd have to craft it himself, drawing on what he'd observed, what he understood of their hierarchy and their pride. He would lay out the facts, but with the respect and gravity due to a consul. He would highlight the direct threat to Valerus, to his authority, to his very coffers. He would make it clear that Kailas was not just a bandit leader, but an architect of rebellion, a cancer eating away at the Imperium from within. It was a daunting task, as challenging in its own way as facing a dozen Crimson Hounds. But the consul's safety, and the stability of the Imperium, depended on it. Robert dipped his quill in the inkwell, a grim determination setting his jaw. He would write this report, and it would be a weapon in its own right. So, what's the date today, anyway? Robert asked, turning to Vardis. Vardis paused, considering the question with a slight tilt of his head. Today, Master Robert, is the second day after the market, following the last market caravan that passed through. So, if the market was on a Tuesday, then today would be a Thursday. Robert nodded slowly, processing the local dating system. All right. And what year is this, by your reckoning? And which month are we in? What month day is it? Vardis looked thoughtful. The year, Master Robert, is the 616th year since the founding of the Solarian Imperium. He then gestured to the sky. We are in the sixth moon, the one they call Viridia, for the lush growth it brings. As for the day of the moon, it is the 18th day of Viridia. Report to Consul Valerus Editanorum, summary of recent events. 2. Consul Valerus Editanorum from Robert Lake date, June 18, 616 SIY. Consul. I trust this report finds you well. I am pleased to inform you of the successful commencement of our efforts to address the bandit scourge plaguing the northern routes to Castillos. My recent marriage to Aquina, as you advised, has indeed provided a solid foundation for these endeavors and my integration into your esteemed community. Following our discussions regarding the banditry, my men and I undertook a reconnaissance mission to the northern pass, a known choke point for merchant caravans. We encountered a significant group of brigands, approximately 40 strong, who boldly attempted to confiscate provisions from a supply cart. Their leader, identifying himself and his men as the Crimson Hounds, declared their intent to seize the goods by their own authority. My team, employing novel tactics and equipment, engaged the bandits. The encounter was swift and decisive. I am pleased to report that we suffered no casualties or injuries on our side. Of the enemy, 12 were neutralized immediately, and 8 sustained serious wounds. Critically, 4 of their members were captured alive and conscious. These captives are currently being held for interrogation to gain further intelligence on their network and leadership. This successful operation was conducted without civilian harm and has effectively cleared this particular stretch of road. We are now in the process of gathering more comprehensive intelligence to dismantle their entire operation and ensure the lasting security of trade routes. Further updates will be provided as our operations progress. Respectfully, Robert Lake. Detailed report, bandit interrogation and probabilities analysis. 2. Internal records command from Robert Lake date, June 18, 616 SIY. Subject. Interrogation and analysis of captured bandit elements, Crimson Hounds. 1. Interrogation summary. Upon securing the ambush site following the engagement with the Crimson Hounds, 4 injured but conscious bandits were taken into custody for interrogation. The interrogations were conducted by Vardis and Lycos, who possess prior experience in such matters. Robert Lake also personally conducted one of the interrogations to ensure accuracy. The primary objective was to ascertain the location of their main base, their command structure, and any allied forces or supply networks. Key information extracted includes main base location. The primary stronghold of the Crimson Hounds, referred to as the Serpent's Coil, is located deep within the northern peaks. It is described as a fortress carved into the mountainside, accessible only by a single, treacherous path. The journey is estimated to be 3 days' hard march beyond the Broken Tooth Gulch waterfall. Leadership and key figures. The overall leader of the Crimson Hounds is Kailas. He departed the Serpent's Coil yesterday, prior to the current engagement, to meet with an individual named Thorn at the port city of Viridian Coast. This provides a critical window of opportunity due to his absence. Internal command. Kailas relies on a select group of lieutenants who are knowledgeable of the Serpent's Coil's intricate paths, often referred to as loyal hounds. These pathfinders or key internal figures are Silas, a quiet blade, skilled with a throwing knife. Lazarus, a brute, strong as an ox, with a short temper. Milo, cunning and fast, a good scout for Kailas. Castor and Pollux, a pair of twins, inseparable, always together. Their locations. Silas and Lazarus mostly operate out of a hidden lodge in the Echoing Gorge, a day's ride northwest. Milo and the twins usually work from a hunting cabin in the Whispering Hills, about a day's ride directly north. Corvus, one of the captured, claimed Zephyr was a scout and courier for Kailas, but not one of these loyal hounds. Subordinate packs allies. The Crimson Hounds operate in various packs or groups. Two specific packs were identified as potentially operating in the northern routes, Garrus's pack and Talon's pack. Garrus's pack hit the eastern road near the Whispering Pines a month ago, taking textiles and dyes. Talon's pack struck the southern pass 2 weeks before that, taking wine and raw copper. Kailas also has connections with Chief Borin of the Mountain Clans and Lord Kalan of the Iron Hills, chieftains of savage tribes in the northern mountains, whom he supplies with weapons and coin to raid imperial outposts. He also has contact with disgraced merchants from the Tyrian League, such as Thorn from Viridian Coast, to move goods and gather intelligence in other regions. Current bandit numbers. The group encountered in this engagement was approximately 40 strong. Of these, 4 were captured alive, 8 seriously wounded and likely to die, and 12 killed instantly. Motivation and Kailas's grand plan. Kailas intends to control all trade routes in Vesperia, not just by robbing, but by taxing them. His goal is to starve the consul's coffers, undermine the Solarian Imperium, and establish a new city free from imperial rule. He promises power and wealth, building something big and instilling fear as a true force. Merchant Kailas's route. Corroborated Zephyr identified Master Kailas as a neutral merchant who deals in common goods, salt, dried fish, tools, blankets, wine, small trinkets, and usually passes through Halfton, Oakhaven, Stonebrook, and Ethelberg. He usually follows the old Imperial Road north from Valerus's Crossing, then veers west to Stonebrook, then north through Oakhaven to Halfton, and then to Ethelberg before turning back south. He avoids main routes near Castillos due to bandit activity, orchestrated by himself. Next ambush. Lucius confirmed that the target for his pack was the Friday caravan. He also clarified that the early positioning of Ulfa's pack, the one engaged, was due to Ulfa's paranoia about Consul's guards. 2. Probabilities and analysis of interrogation data. The consistency of information across multiple captives, even under duress, lends a high probability of accuracy to the core details. Robert's method of not giving them an answer but letting them give you the answer proved effective in uncovering inconsistencies and deeper truths. Serpent's coil location. High probability the repeated mention and consistent description of the serpent's coil from Rorik, initially, Zephyr, and Corvus indicate a very high probability that this is Kailas's central stronghold. The consistent emphasis on its inaccessibility and the need for pathfinders further supports this as a critical strategic target. Kailas's identity and absence. High probability the consistent naming of Kailas as the true leader and merchant orchestrator by multiple captives, coupled with the details of his recent departure from Serpent's Coil and destination, Viridian Coast to meet Thorn, has a very high probability of being accurate. This temporary absence significantly increases the probability of a successful strike against his lieutenants and disruption of his network without facing direct leadership. Key lieutenants, pathfinders. High probability the identification of Silas, Lazarus, Milo, Castor, and Pollux as critical pathfinders and internal command is highly probable. Targeting these individuals is a strategic imperative as it directly impacts the Hound's ability to operate cohesively and navigate to their secure base. Subordinate pack locations. Medium to high probability. While the exact current movements of Garrus's and Talon's packs are fluid, their general operating areas, eastern foothills, southern marshlands, are likely accurate as long-standing territories. The probability of encountering them along the northern routes near Castillos is moderate, as they too might be repositioning or awaiting opportune moments. Kailas's grand plan. Medium probability. For full scope, the details provided by Lucius regarding Kailas's ambition to control trade routes, tax merchants, and undermine the Imperium are consistent with the scale of the bandit operations and the nature of the loyal hounds. While the full extent of this vision may be exaggerated by a subordinate, the core intent of Kailas to be a significant regional power broker is likely true. Iron Vipers. Confirmed inconsistency. Low current relevance. Rorik's initial slip and correction about the Iron Vipers was a confirmed inconsistency. While not immediately relevant to the current operation, it indicates a prior, smaller affiliation for Ulfa's pack and suggests potential deeper layers to Kailas's recruitment or merging of existing smaller gangs. Its probability of being a true former affiliation is high, but its current operational relevance is low. Captives' backgrounds, high probability of personal truth. The details provided by Zephyr, farmer, wife Lyra, 2 daughters, Ethelberg, sends coin via Kylus, and Corvus, orphan, born on road, no family, 10 years with hounds, and Lucius, orphan, Praxia, no family, 3 years with Ulfa's group, are deeply personal and were extracted through psychological pressure rather than physical. The emotional sincerity, particularly from Zephyr, lends these details a high probability of being personally true, aiding in understanding motivations. Brutus, orphan, Redstone, no family, also confirmed his lack of family, aligning with a common background for these disposable men. 3. Strategic implications and recommendations. The interrogation results confirm the need for a multi-pronged approach. Immediate reconnaissance. Critical: prioritize immediate dispatch of scout teams to confirm the presence and current movements of Garrus's and Talon's packs in the northern routes. This will mitigate the risk of being blindsided by other elements of the Crimson Hounds. Targeted lieutenant capture. Primary objective: the most effective way to cripple Kylus's network in his absence is to capture his key lieutenants, Silas, Lazarus, Milo, Castor, Pollux. This will severely degrade his command and control, particularly regarding access to the Serpent's Coil. Stealth and surgical strikes. Given the formidable nature of the Serpent's Coil and the likely superior numbers of the full Crimson Hounds, direct confrontation is to be avoided. Utilizing stealth, Phantasma Verde suits, and the overwhelming firepower of our crossbows in targeted, rapid engagements is crucial for success. Leverage captured pathfinders. The forced cooperation of injured captives, Lucius, Zephyr, Corvus, Brutus, as guides is a high-risk, high-reward strategy. Their knowledge is invaluable, but their loyalty remains suspect. Strict security protocols are paramount during transport and movement. Surgical intervention has been performed on all wounded captives to ensure their short-term survival and potential for continued cooperation. Exploit Kylus's absence. The current window of opportunity, with Kylus away, is vital. Rapid execution of the plan to capture his lieutenants and gather more intelligence on the Serpent's Coil must be prioritized. Friday caravan protection. Ongoing: maintain vigilance and defensive posture at the ambush site for the upcoming Friday caravan. This serves both as a defensive measure and a potential opportunity to further engage and weaken the bandits if they attempt another robbery. Future considerations. Kylus's grand ambition to undermine the Solarian Imperium and establish a new order, as per Lucius, suggests that merely eliminating bandit packs is insufficient. A long-term strategy involving the Serpent's Coil and Kylus himself will be necessary to fully secure the region. Conclusion. The interrogation of the captured bandits has yielded actionable intelligence that significantly refines our understanding of the Crimson Hounds and Kylus's broader agenda. While challenges remain, particularly regarding the Serpent's Coil, the path forward for dismantling this threat is now clear. Our immediate focus will be on eliminating the scattered elements and capturing key lieutenants to pave the way for a potential future assault on Kylus's main stronghold. Robert meticulously organized the stacks of white bond paper, an anomaly in this world of parchment and crude quills, a stark symbol of his alien origin yet an invaluable tool for his methodical mind. He began to transcribe the raw data gleaned from the interrogations, converting terrified whispers and forced confessions into a coherent tactical picture. His pen scratched across the smooth surface, mapping out the Serpent's Coil, detailing Kylus's network of lieutenants, and outlining the grand, terrifying ambition of the bandit leader to destabilize the Imperium. His analysis, crisp and unburdened by the emotional complexities that clouded the minds of Vardis and Lycos, identified critical vulnerabilities and strategic imperatives. This was more than just a report, it was a blueprint for war, laid bare for the consul to judge the true state of his realm. Once the report was complete, concise yet comprehensive, Robert also penned a more personal letter to Akina, his wife. His pen moved with a different rhythm as he addressed her, the words flowing with a warmth that acknowledged their recent union and his commitment. He described the successful ambush, the clearing of the immediate threat, and his hopes for a peaceful future for Castilio's and for them, carefully omitting the brutal realities of his methods. He sealed the letter with a wax stamp he'd improvised, a small, circular signet with an abstract, almost geometric pattern that had caught his eye. He remembered finding it among some antique tools back home, intrigued by its style and then learning of its use in ancient Freemason summons, a practice that paralleled the traditional, seemingly outdated methods favored by the Freemasons without borders doctors whose system he'd once criticized, but who had simply retorted, "There is wisdom in doing the old way." The irony was not lost on him as he carefully applied the molten wax. He then accessed his exchange system on his secure device, the screen glowing faintly in the dim light of the clearing. He initiated a withdrawal, converting 110 solidi from his vast Bualawan reserves into the local currency. He carefully separated 10 solidi, setting them aside. From his personal effects, he retrieved a small, sealed wooden box, placing the remaining 100 solidi inside it, ensuring its contents were hidden. "Driver!" Robert called out, as the designated individual approached the camp, ready for his return journey to Castillo's. The driver, a seasoned man with a weathered face, pulled his horse-drawn cart to a halt. "Master Robert," the driver acknowledged, his gaze wary but respectful. "I have a message for the consul," Robert began, holding out the sealed report. "This is for his eyes only. It concerns the bandits and the security of the roads." The driver nodded, taking the scroll with care. "Excellent. And for your service in this, take these 10 solidi." Robert handed him the coins directly. "Now, this parcel," he continued, holding out the sealed wooden box and the letter, the wax seal prominently displayed, "is for my wife, Akina, at the Boar's Tusk Inn. It is a personal gift, and its contents are for her eyes only. You are not to know what is inside. Simply deliver it to her directly, along with this letter. But pay close attention to this," Robert added, pointing to the wax seal on the envelope. "This wax seal is proof that this letter has not been opened since I sealed it. It is to remain unbroken. You must instruct Akina to take note of its state upon receipt. If the wax is broken, it means the letter has been tampered with." He then showed the driver the small wax signet in his hand. "This is my seal. She will recognize it. It confirms the letter's authenticity and your honesty in its delivery." The driver's eyes widened at the unexpected detail, acknowledging the weight of the instruction. He carefully accepted the items, tucking them securely into a pouch on his belt, and then gazed with renewed respect at the unique signet. "Understood, Master Robert. I will ensure they are delivered, and your message conveyed precisely, and she will be told to note the seal, without question." Robert nodded, a flicker of something akin to genuine affection, or perhaps just pragmatism, in his gaze. "Good. May your journey be swift and safe." He watched as the driver climbed back onto his cart and, with a crack of the reins, headed back towards the distant lights of Castillo's, carrying not just a report of war, but a personal token and message for his bride, secured by an old-world method he had reluctantly come to appreciate. The ornate doors of Consul Valerus's study swung open with a soft thud, admitting his senior aide, Marcus, who carried a rolled parchment. Valerus, a man whose stern features were usually etched with the wariness of governance, looked up from his maps, a faint frown already creasing his brow. The hour was late, and urgent dispatches were rarely good news. "Consul," Marcus began, his voice unusually hushed, "a report, delivered by special courier from our northern outposts. From Robert Lake, commander of the newly assigned militia." Robert Lake. Valerus remembered the name, the odd, innovative man who had been given a surprising amount of leeway. A flicker of curiosity, quickly suppressed, crossed his face. He extended a hand for the report, unrolling it with a crisp snap of parchment. His eyes scanned the opening lines. An executive summary. Unusual, for a field report, but he continued. The mention of Kailas immediately snagged his attention. He knew of the merchant, vaguely, as a successful if somewhat reclusive figure operating out of Valerus's crossing. But orchestrating a sophisticated operation aimed at controlling all trade routes in Vesperia? His frown deepened. As he read, the fatigue seemed to drain from his body, replaced by a cold, building fury. Each line was a hammer blow, starve the consul's coffers, undermine the Solarian Imperium's presence, building a new city, free from imperial rule. The sheer audacity of it. This wasn't mere brigandage, this was sedition, a direct challenge to his authority, to the very foundation of the Imperium in this province. Then came the allies, Chief Borin of the mountain clans, Lord Kalen of the Iron Hills, disgraced merchants from the Tyrian League. Valerus slammed a fist on the table, the maps rattling. He had been so focused on the visible threats, the border skirmishes, the tax collection, that this viper had been allowed to burrow deep into his lands, unnoticed. The description of the Serpent's Coil, as an impregnable fortress, stung his pride. A stronghold, carved into his mountains, run by a merchant? Unacceptable. He reached the interrogation full report, his eyes devouring the details. The methods used, even the psychological approach Robert detailed, were unorthodox, far removed from the crude lash and rack usually employed. Yet, the precision of the information, the cross-verification, the unraveling of lies, it was undeniably effective. He saw the truth laid bare, the desperate farmers driven to banditry by taxes and lean harvests, a bitter pill to swallow. He had known of the hardship, but not its direct exploitation as a recruitment tool against him. And the intelligence and security gaps, a grim reflection on his own administration. When he finished, the parchment trembled slightly in his hands, not from weakness, but from the suppressed rage coiling within him. Kailas was not just a threat, he was a master manipulator, a hidden enemy who had been allowed to flourish under his very nose. The scale of the deception, the depth of the conspiracy, it was a personal affront. "Marcus!" Valerus's voice boomed, sharp and clear in the quiet study. Marcus flinched, startled by the sudden intensity. "Consul! Send riders! Immediately! To every legionnaire, every centurion, every optio within 2 days' march. I want them assembled here, in the Praetorium, by dawn's first light." He paced, his mind racing, plotting. "And send for my praetor. Wake him if he sleeps. Inform the magistracy. We need every detail of their records on this Master Kailas. Every shipment, every contact, every coin exchange." He turned back to Marcus, his eyes blazing with a dangerous resolve. "This is not merely a bandit problem, Marcus. This is an organized rebellion, an attempt to tear Vesperia from the Imperium's grasp. And it starts, apparently, with a merchant. We will root out this Serpent's Coil, and we will sever every one of its vile connections. We will make an example that will echo across the plains and through the mountains for generations." "An assembly, consul?" Marcus asked, still a little stunned by the shift in his leader's demeanor. "Yes, Marcus," Valerus stated, his voice now a low, dangerous growl. "An assembly. I want every leader, every officer, every man who holds a position of responsibility in this region. They will hear this report, and they will understand the true enemy they face. And then, we will act." He gestured to the report, now crumpled in his hand. "This Robert Lake, an unusual man, but he has brought us a truth we desperately needed. Now, we will use it." His gaze hardened, fixed on an unseen point beyond the study walls. "Kailas has sown the seeds of rebellion. We will harvest the whirlwind." The biting chill of the early morning air still clung to the ravine, but a different kind of tension now permeated the familiar ambush site. The lingering scent of scorched earth and stale blood from 2 days prior served as a grim reminder of the skirmish. Robert stood amidst the lingering silence, his gaze sweeping across the natural choke point where they had ambushed the Crimson Hounds. This was no longer just a bandit hideout, it was now, in Consul Valerus's mind, a rebel staging ground. Today was the 20th day of June, in the 616th year since the founding of the Solarian Imperium. If they had attacked on a Saturday, then 2 days later would be a Monday. The consul's assembly would be in full swing by now, the whispers of rebellion and sedition echoing through the hallowed halls of the Praetorium. Robert had received the consul's immediate response, a terse, one-line directive carried by a breathless courier: "Stand ready. Further orders to follow. Consul Valerus." It was all he needed to know. Valerus had taken the bait, or rather, he had accepted the truth. The fire was lit. He ran a hand over the rough-hewn stone of the ravine wall. This place, once a mere tactical point, now felt like a pivot. The skirmish here was the pinprick that had revealed the festering wound of Kailas's network. "Vardis, Lycos!" Robert called out, his voice sharp, cutting through the quiet. The two veterans, who had been inspecting the remaining bandit gear, snapped to attention. "Clean this place thoroughly," Robert ordered, his eyes still scanning the surrounding terrain. "Every trace. Every loose arrow, every discarded water skin. We leave nothing. Then, I want patrols. Not patrols for bandits, mind you. Patrols for signs of Kailas's men coming here. They'll know this site has been compromised, eventually. I want to know who comes sniffing, and from what direction." His mind raced, a whirlwind of strategy. The consul would be planning his grand counteroffensive, a hammer blow. But Kailas was cunning. He wouldn't simply stand and fight. He would adapt, relocate, dig deeper. Robert's role now wasn't just to be a soldier, but to be the consul's eyes and ears in the shadow war, anticipating the enemy's next move. "Lycos, I want you to take a small, fast team. Scouts. I need them moving quietly, deep into the northern forest. Not to engage, but to observe. Look for any sign of increased activity, new camps, unusual movements of goods, anything that suggests Kailas's loyal hounds are relocating or preparing. Focus on the routes leading to where Zephyr claimed the Serpent's Coil might be. 3 days' march beyond Broken Tooth Gulch Waterfall." Lycos nodded, his expression grimly determined. "Understood, Commander." Quiet as ghosts. "Vardis," Robert continued, turning to the older soldier, "you and I will take a small, trusted group. We're going to follow up on some of Zephyr's other claims. Thorn's End, the old village. The loose stone by the well. We need to see if Kailas left anything for his couriers, any indication of his current movements or plans." Vardis's eyes widened slightly. "Going into the Viper's Den, sir?" "Only to check for the serpent's shed skin, Vardis," Robert replied, a thin smile playing on his lips. "Kailas is headed to Viridian Coast to meet Thorn. That's our primary lead for now. But if he's as careful as Zephyr claimed, he might have left a trail here. We need to confirm. And if we find anything, it goes straight to the consul." Robert knew the danger was immense. They were operating behind enemy lines, in essence, within the very network they were trying to dismantle. But he also felt a surge of purpose. He had unearthed this conspiracy, and he would be damned if he let Kailas slip away. The consul had branded them rebels. Robert would ensure they were crushed like rebels. His report was the spark. Now, he needed to provide the fuel for the consul's wrath. So what led to all of these was the courier, a wiry young man named Tobias, had returned on horseback as ordered, his panting mount flecked with foam. The consul sent his reply. The absence of the cart underscored the urgency of his mission to travel light to and from. His arrival, though expected, did little to settle the gnawing anticipation among Robert's men. They were isolated, surrounded by an unseen enemy whose strength remained unknown. Robert, sensing the quiet tension, called out, "Vardis, Lycos. Cassius, Fabian, Neus, Marius. Gather around." His senior men quickly assembled. "Men," Robert began, his voice low but firm, an old saying, or perhaps it was Sun Tzu, states, "A wise man prepares for war in times of peace. We are no longer in peace. We are, by the consul's own decree, fighting a rebellion. And we will prepare." He unrolled the map he had painstakingly fashioned based on the captives' descriptions. "Based on the intelligence from our guests," he gestured subtly towards the secured prisoners, "we have a clearer picture of the Crimson Hound's usual movements and their tactics. This is no longer a blind hunt." Robert's finger traced lines on the map. Zephyr, the bandit scout we interrogated, mentioned the Three Sisters as a rallying point where they gather before splitting up and dispersing into various forest paths leading to their ambush points. It's to avoid eyes, to not draw suspicion with a large gathering before a raid. This is key. They aren't coming at us in a single, predictable wave. They are like water, flowing through multiple channels to converge on a target. Our goal is to turn those channels into traps. Expected bandit paths and proposed traps. The main approach from the Three Sisters, primary killing zone. Description: This suggests key trails radiating from the Three Sisters formation towards the main road, where bandits would likely consolidate before fanning out for an ambush. Zephyr emphasized that this was a common, seemingly safe path for large groups approaching an ambush site from the rendezvous point. Trap strategy: we concentrate our efforts here. We create a series of layered, concealed pitfalls on the most direct, seemingly safe paths from the Three Sisters to the main road leading here. Dig deep, camouflage with brush and leaves. Fill them with sharpened stakes or leave them empty to simply disable and capture. For added effect, we can run tripwires across these paths, rigged to pull down nets or small log deadfalls from the trees above. The goal is mass disruption and confusion. Targeting the announcer, the leader, whoever steps forward to command this next attack, will likely announce the robbery, as was customary with Ulfa's pack, often loudly to instill fear. We need him to make that announcement outside of our most lethal traps. We will position our marksmen, Cassius, Neas, to observe these approaches. Let the main body of their men fall into the traps. The leader, likely positioned to oversee, should be just beyond the immediate kill zone of the main trap, allowing him to step forward and announce himself. Once he does, we disable him, but we don't kill him unless necessary. He holds valuable information, and perhaps, more loyal hounds might reveal themselves if we capture him alive. His capture after his men are in disarray will be a psychological blow. Flanking paths, blocking points and secondary traps. Description: bandits, especially those with knowledge of local terrain like Zephyr, would use less obvious, concealed routes for flanking maneuvers or escaping quickly. These paths would likely skirt the main approach, using natural cover and avoiding the most obvious trails. Trap strategy: along the flanks of the main ambush pass, we identify narrower, less traveled paths that would still allow a quick approach. Here, we set up caltrips or spiked board traps, concealed under thin layers of soil. These are designed not necessarily to kill, but to injure and slow. Further back, on these same paths, we can rig snare traps for individuals, particularly if they scatter after the primary ambush. We also set up alarm wires, simple strings with bells or dried gourds, to alert us if they try to bypass the main zone entirely. Escape routes, choke points and intercept zones. Description: any experienced bandit group would have pre-planned escape routes, likely leading deeper into the forest or towards specific terrain features like dense thickets or small ravines for quick disappearance. Trap strategy: we will identify natural choke points on likely escape routes. Here, we will prepare for small, mobile ambushes, not traps in the ground, but concealed teams ready to intercept. Vardis: your experience in tracking will be vital here. We won't try to kill every fleeing man, but capture is preferable, especially if they are high-value targets trying to escape. Our priority, Robert concluded, sweeping his gaze across the faces of his men, is to draw them into our prepared zones. We let them believe they have the element of surprise, as is their custom. But the true surprise will be ours. We are no longer defending, we are hunting. And we will use their own movements against them. Now, let's get to work. Show me these paths on the ground. We have a lot of digging to do. The sun, a pale disk above the tree line, cast long shadows through the forest. The quiet of the ambush site was thick with anticipation. Days of meticulous preparation had passed since Tobias, the courier, had galloped back with the consul's terse reply. Robert's men, now seasoned by rotation in guard duty and continuous training, held their positions with grim focus. Tuesday had yielded nothing. Wednesday, too, had passed in silent vigilance, punctuated only by their disciplined drills. Thursday began with the same seemingly lazy hum of the forest, promising more training and quiet guard rotations. But then, a rustle in the undergrowth, a faint, almost imperceptible sound. Suddenly, an arrow, fletched with a distinctive green feather, whizzed silently from the dense woods to their forwardmost scout. Tied to its shaft was a tightly rolled piece of parchment. It was a trick they'd learned about from their captives, a silent message delivery system. Another arrow followed, then another, relayed by hand from scout to scout until the message reached Robert. The message was terse, delivered by a breathless scout to Robert. Commander, movement. Large group, hurried. Approaching from the northeast. Mixed company. Approximately 40 to 46 unarmed men, 35 armed. Armed men in soldiers' attire, unarmed in simple tunics. Speed is unusual. Robert's eyes narrowed. This was perplexing. 40 unarmed men? Soldiers' attire on the armed ones? His gut tightened. He snapped orders, his voice cutting through the tension. Alert everyone! Stations! This isn't what we expected, but we are prepared. Move! A controlled ripple spread through their concealed positions as the men, grim-faced, melted further into the terrain, becoming one with their ghillie suits and the shadows. Every man knew his role, every trap location, every designated killing zone. Moments later, the distant sounds of hurried movement grew louder, accompanied by the distinct cadence of a man barking orders. They were close. Through the dense foliage, Robert could now make out the approaching group. He heard the captain's voice, loud and coarse, addressing the unarmed men. Your job is to carry goods. When we say come out, you all come out and take what we ask you to carry. We will assign you your position, just listen. The bewildered expressions on the faces of the unarmed civilians were visible even from Robert's hidden vantage point. Suddenly, a panicked shout from one of the bandits' forward scouts rent the air. Hey! They are here! The bandit captain, caught off guard, felt the pressure instantly. Move! Everyone, just move! He roared, abandoning any pretense of organized deployment. The group surged forward, a chaotic wave of armed and unarmed men, blindly rushing to cut off the caravan's front, hoping to prevent any report of their presence. Shouts, cries, and wails erupted from the disorganized ranks as some men stumbled, others pushed, and fear seized the unprepared civilians. The captain, with his core group, ran faster, driven by a desperate need to reach the caravan. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of terror and panicked commands. The bandit captain, a figure with a striking red plume like a rooster's comb on his helmet, burst into the clearing. He was around 30 yards from the lead cart of the caravan, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. He extended his right hand, a universal signal to halt. Then, he bellowed across the clearing, "Hi, Bob." What? Robert muttered to himself, a flicker of bewildered amusement in his otherwise stone-cold focus. So, their version is Hi, Bob, and Earth uses Hi, Jack. Bob is a common name, then. The captain, basking in his perceived victory, announced their organization with a flourish. We are the Free Riders. And I am Captain Kalen. We'll be taking your merchandise now. About half of his armed men burst from the tree line, followed by roughly a third of the bewildered civilians, still looking dazed and confused. The merchants, clearly suckered into this, being unfamiliar with the route, immediately protested. What is the meaning of this? They cried out, their voices laced with outrage. The captain, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding behind him, simply reiterated, "This is a robbery. Didn't you get it? I said, hi Bob." Meanwhile, Robert's meticulously planned trap worked with devastating efficiency. The unorganized rush of the bandits' main force and their civilian porters played directly into his hands. Like clockwork, and as practiced, the killing zone elements positioned themselves. Vardis, upon seeing that every man was in position, bellowed, "Loose!" A lethal hail of arrows darkened the air, a deadly rain that found its mark. Men crumpled, some with arrows in their heads, others struck in vital areas. Groans, moans, and the gurgling gasps of dying men filled the air as the bandits fell. Robert's men, emerging from their hidden positions, moved forward relentlessly, loosing arrow after arrow into the reeling enemy. The captain, caught aghast, spun around, his triumphant smile replaced by utter horror. "Where are they? Where are the rest?" he screamed, his voice raw with disbelief. All he heard were the agonizing sounds of his men, trapped and dying. It happened so fast. In barely a minute, almost all of the armed men went down. The captain, lucky to be further out on the opposite side, hadn't even moved. He finally registered the scale of the catastrophe. He turned and ran, screaming like a girl, shamelessly calling his own fallen men bandits. The arrow couldn't reach him. Robert, desperate to eliminate this leader, instinctively reached under his cloak and gripped his M4. He hadn't wanted to use it, to reveal its true nature just yet, but this was too opportune. He flicked the selector, not to semi, but to burst. The M4 roared to life, a short, sharp burst of otherworldly sound that shocked everyone, his own men included. The bandit leader stumbled, then fell face down. But incredibly, fueled by sheer fear and adrenaline, he scrambled back to his feet, screaming, and ran again. "Tough bastard," Robert muttered, stepping forward, his M4 now spitting rounds on full auto, aiming at the fleeing figure. Half or more of the 30-round magazine was expended before the man finally went down, lying face down and still. Just to be sure, Robert drew his classic 1911 pistol. "Bang!" he said, aiming at the back of the bandit's head. "No need to double tap, I am not Mossad." He turned back to his men, who stared, still shocked by his magical weapon. "All right, mop up," he commanded, his voice returning to normal. "Check who is alive and dead, round them all up." Robert's men quickly moved through the carnage. Along the blocking points and in the main killing zone, their traps had worked flawlessly. There were no losses on their side. Many of the enemy were caught, some dead, some alive but gravely injured and still stuck in the traps. Others were rounded up, able to walk but clearly stunned by the swift, overwhelming defeat. They began the grim work of separating the unharmed from the severely injured, the dead from the barely living. The chaotic din of battle slowly subsided, replaced by the grim, methodical sounds of the mop-up. Robert's men, still wide-eyed from the raw power of his magical weapon, went about their duties with a new, sober efficiency. They moved through the ambush site, a tapestry of sprung traps, fallen bodies, and bewildered survivors. Vardis, ever the meticulous one, returned first, his boots squelching slightly in a damp patch near a freshly sprung pitfall. "Commander, report on captives and casualties." Robert nodded, holstering his 1911. "Proceed, Vardis." "Right. Counting everyone we've managed to secure or find alive, we have a total of 76 enemy personnel." Robert's brows rose slightly. 76. Larger than expected for a single pack. He motioned for Vardis to continue. "Breaking that down, Commander, it's a mixed bag as your scout report said." Vardis consulted a small slate he'd quickly marked up. Total enemy personnel, 76. Armed men, soldiers. Dead, on the spot, direct arrow hits 30. All armed men who came out with the captain are down. Mostly clean kills, arrows to vital spots. Wounded, in traps, severely wounded, immobile 5. These 5 were caught in the larger pitfalls or under log deadfalls. They are still in the traps, badly injured, unable to move on their own. Likely broken limbs, impalement, severe blunt trauma. In modern terms, these are critical, Cat I, or urgent, Cat 2, requires immediate medical attention to save life, limb, unable to self-aid. Unarmed men, civilians, porters. Dead, in traps, direct arrow hits 2. 2 of the civilians were unfortunately caught in the direct line of fire or fell onto stakes in traps. Accidental. Wounded, in traps, severely wounded, immobile 8. Similarly caught and badly injured by the traps, unable to move. Similar modern classification to the armed wounded. Walking wounded, capable of movement 21. These men were either grazed by arrows, bruised from falling, or sustained minor cuts from trap elements but can walk, albeit with difficulty and pain. They are largely coherent but shaken. In modern terms, delayed, Cat 3, injuries requiring medical attention but can wait. Unharmed, minimal impact, no significant injury 10. These were either at the very back of the initial rush, were pushed to the side, or simply froze and weren't caught in the immediate chaos. They are terrified and compliant, mostly in shock. In modern terms, minimal, Cat 4, minor injuries can be treated by self-aid or by non-medical personnel. The bandit captain. Dead, 1, as you ensured, Commander. Bullet to the head. Summary of enemy status. Total dead, 33, 30 armed, 2 unarmed, 1 captain. Total wounded, immobile, severely wounded in traps 13, 5 armed, 8 unarmed. Total walking wounded, 21, all unarmed. Total unharmed, minimal impact, 10, all unarmed. Combined totals, 33, dead, plus 13, severely wounded, plus 21, walking wounded, plus 10, unharmed, equals 77. Vardis paused, double-checking his slate. Ah, Commander, my apologies. That puts our total enemy personnel at 77. My initial count missed the captain in the summary. So, 35 armed, including the captain, and 42 unarmed. Robert nodded, processing the numbers. The civilian element was concerning. This wasn't just a bandit raid, it was forced labor, or worse, a deception. And our losses, Vardis? Robert asked, though he already knew the answer. Vardis's expression finally softened, a rare, genuine relief spreading across his face. None, Commander. Not a scratch. All our men are accounted for, fully capable, and in position. The traps held. A grim satisfaction settled over Robert. Good. Very good. Get the walking wounded separated. Bind their hands. Send a team to carefully extract the immobile wounded from the traps. They are prisoners, and they will be treated. No killing unless they resist violently. We need them alive. He looked at the dead. And for the dead, a quick burial. We don't want to leave a calling card for their next pack. We are not just holding ground, we are setting the stage. The quiet hum of the M4, now slung back under Robert's cloak, seemed to echo in the sudden stillness of the clearing. He turned from assessing the grim tally of the fallen, and immediately felt their gazes. Not on the dead, not on the traps, but on him. More precisely, on the barely concealed bulge beneath his cloak where the rifle rested. Vardis, Lycos, Cassius, Fabian, Neas, Marius, all of them. Their usual hardened, professional stares had softened, replaced by a mixture of awe, curiosity, and a barely contained, almost childlike eagerness. Vardis, usually so stoic, cleared his throat, his eyes flicking from Robert's face to his side. Commander, he began, his voice a little rougher than usual, that was quite the display. What manner of weapon is that? Lycos, ever the quiet one, simply nodded, his gaze intense. I've never seen a man fall so quickly, with such fire. Robert's gaze swept over them, seeing the raw desire in their eyes. He had known this moment would come. This was why he was here, after all. But the immediate desire warred with his own ingrained pragmatism, his modern world understanding of these tools. He had brought these weapons to sell, yes, but not to hand out like trinkets. They required discipline, understanding, and most importantly, literacy. It is a tool, Robert stated, his voice calm, a very powerful tool. One that can achieve much and cause much. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. It is not a simple bow or spear. It has complexities. He looked directly at Vardis. Vardis, you said you can read a little. Enough for muster rolls and basic accounts. Lycos, you read better. He turned to the others. What of the rest of you? Can you read the common script? Cassius, usually quick to answer, hesitated. Enough to make out commands, Commander, he admitted, a slight flush on his cheeks. But not like a scribe. Fabian chimed in. I know my numbers, sir, and the names of the gods. Little more. Neas shrugged. I can sign my name, Commander. That's about it for writing. Marius, the youngest of the senior men, looked down at his feet. My village had no schools, sir. I learned to track, not to read. A familiar hesitation settled over Robert. This was the crux of it. The manuals he carried, the cleaning instructions, the safety protocols, they all required literacy. These were highly technical pieces of equipment, not crude iron. Handing them to men who couldn't read the warnings, who couldn't follow precise instructions for maintenance, was a recipe for disaster. Accidental discharges, improper cleaning leading to weapon failure, or worse, injury to themselves or their allies. This weapon, and others like it, Robert explained, his voice losing some of its earlier calm and taking on a serious edge, requires more than just strength or courage. It requires understanding. It requires precise instruction for its care, for its loading, for its use in all conditions. He gestured vaguely at the ground. A bow, you learn by doing. A spear, by practice. This is different. He looked at their hopeful, slightly confused faces. I did plan to introduce you to these tools, yes. It is why I am here. But they are not for the unlettered. To truly master them, to wield them safely and effectively, you must be able to read and comprehend the instructions. To understand the diagrams, the warnings. A ripple of disappointment, quickly masked, went through the group. Their excitement deflated visibly. Commander, Vada said, a note of quiet pleading in his voice, we are quick learners. We follow orders precisely. Could we not learn by rote? From you, Commander? Indeed, Master Robert, Lycos added, stepping forward slightly. What we lack in letters, we make up for in dedication. If this weapon grants such an advantage, we would devote ourselves to its mastery. Robert looked at them, seeing their genuine desire, their warrior's pride. He knew they were brave, loyal, and capable. But the risk, the sheer, unpredictable risk of putting a modern firearm into the hands of an illiterate soldier, no matter how skilled with traditional arms, gnawed at him. The thought of a negligent discharge, a jammed weapon in a critical moment because of a missed cleaning step, or a simple misread instruction, it was a cold dread. He was a gunsmith, a dealer, yes, but he also valued efficiency and safety. He couldn't just hand them out. Not yet. Not without a proper foundation. He would need to teach them, and he would need to be sure they could truly learn. Fear not, Robert assured his men, his gaze unwavering, for this is merely a temporary setback. Once we establish the fortress the consul has approved, the one I have already paid for, mind you, we will construct a proper classroom. There, I will teach you to read and write. Every one of you will learn. He then tapped the area under his cloak where the M4 rested. And once that fortress is established, a smithy will follow. A smithy where we can begin to craft tools such as this. I will be frank, I do not yet possess the precise tools, nor all the necessary materials, to replicate these weapons fully. But we can certainly craft arms like them, or at the very least, improve upon what you currently wield. For now, however, our immediate concern is security. Maintain your rotations, double the vigilance. With a final nod to his assembled senior men, Robert turned his attention to the caravan, which remained a wary huddle of merchants and guards further down the pass. He approached the lead cart, where a portly man with a worried expression stood. Greetings, Robert began, projecting an air of confident authority. I am Robert Lake, commander of the Vesperian Vanguard, attached to the consul's special operations. And you are? The man, clearly intimidated but trying to maintain his composure, bowed slightly. Master Robert, I am Ilara, leader of this caravan. We are but humble merchants. Master Ilara, Robert acknowledged, his voice firm but not unkind. Your predicament is unfortunate, but know that justice has been meted out. Now, I require your assistance. Have your men, those capable, begin to help my militia in cleaning this area. We need to clear the fallen, move the debris. This pass must be usable swiftly. Ilara looked around at the scene of carnage, his eyes wide. Clean, yes, Commander. Immediately. He began to issue hesitant orders to his own men. And tell me, Master Ilara, Robert continued, his tone casual, how is it that your caravan came to be in this particular pass today? Ilara shifted uncomfortably, then explained, Commander, we received a message some days ago, from a reputable merchant, Master Kailas, who frequents Valerus's crossing. He informed us that the usual southern route was experiencing unforeseen difficulties, and strongly suggested this northern pass, assuring us it was clear and safer due to increased Imperial patrols. He swallowed, his eyes widening as the pieces clicked into place for him. He said he had even secured a special escort to pass through without issue. It seems we were misled. Indeed, you were misled, Master Ilara, Robert replied, his voice devoid of sympathy for Kailas. And where are you bound, Master Ilara? Castilio's? Yes, Commander. Castilio's is our destination, with goods for the spring market. Excellent, Robert replied, sweeping his hand towards the still bloody clearing. Then I suggest you and your people assist in the cleanup with all haste. Once the path is clear, we will move out together. I will personally escort your caravan to Castilio's. Ilara's face lit up with relief. Together? Oh, Commander, that would be a blessing. We are truly grateful. Then Robert added, Master Ilara, one more thing. We have severely wounded prisoners who cannot walk. It would be a grave disservice to them, and indeed, a moral failing on our part, to leave them behind to perish or forcing them to march. Do you have any space in your wagons where they might be carried? Even if it's just 2 or 3 of your less burdened carts? Ilara looked uncertain. Commander, our wagons are full, packed with goods. We have little space. Robert's gaze hardened slightly. Then your unharmed civilian porters, and those walking wounded capable of assisting, will build makeshift stretchers. They are capable. They can carry their injured comrades. We will aid them. We are not leaving any living soul behind to perish here slowly. His tone left no room for argument. No prisoner, no matter their crime, will be subjected to such an ordeal under my watch. See to it that space is made, or stretchers are fashioned, and they are carried humanely. Ilara, understanding the non-negotiable nature of the command, quickly assented. Yes, Commander. It shall be done. We will make space or build the stretchers. At once. Hours passed in a flurry of activity. The merchants, terrified and eager to escape, worked with surprising speed alongside Robert's militia. Bodies were dragged into the denser woods, traps were reset or camouflaged, and the general debris of battle was removed. The unarmed captives, under the stern but clear instruction of Robert's men, hastily fashioned crude but sturdy stretchers from fallen branches and spare cloth, carefully placing their severely wounded comrades upon them. By late afternoon, the pass, though still bearing subtle scars, was once again passable, devoid of overt signs of the recent skirmish. The wagons were packed, some now with the silent, prone forms of the severely wounded bandits, while others were carried carefully by their unharmed compatriots. Master Ilara, Robert called out, as the last of the merchant wagons lumbered onto the cleared path. Form up. We move as one column. My men will take point and bring up the rear. Double guards on the wagons carrying the wounded. We move until darkness makes further travel unsafe. Ilara bowed deeply, sweat streaking his face. May the gods bless your vigilance, Commander. We shall not forget your aid. As the combined column, caravan and militia began its slow journey south, Robert turned to his own men. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple. The day had been long, brutal, and filled with unexpected revelations. All right, men, Robert announced, his voice weary but resolute. We will march for approximately 2 hours. The light is fading. We will find a suitable, defensible spot off the main path to make camp for the night. Double guards tonight. We may have won this skirmish, but the war has only just begun. The men, tired but resolute, gathered their gear, their eyes scanning the darkening forest with a newfound wariness. The distant sounds of the caravan's wheels and the shuffling of feet filled the air, leaving them once again in the heavy quiet of the Vesperian wilderness, 2 hours' march closer to Castilio's, and to the escalating conflict against Kailas and his rebellion. The familiar clearing appeared as the last sliver of sunlight dipped below the horizon, cloaking the forest in deepening shadows. 2 hours' walk from Castilio's, but the slowing pace, burdened by the wounded, made further travel unsafe. Robert halted the column. Master Ilara, he called out to the caravan leader, we make camp here for the night. The darkness will hinder our progress, and the safety of all, especially the wounded, is paramount. He then turned to his own men and the caravan's security detail. Vardis, Lycos, coordinate with Master Ilara's guards. We will establish a perimeter. This is a crucial night. I want vigilant rotations, no man sleeping through his watch. We will share the burden. He fixed his gaze on the caravan guards. Your usual habits of rest will not suffice. My men will demonstrate our rotational watch, you will follow it precisely. Every hour, a new pair of eyes on every sector. Master Ilara, though visibly anxious, nodded. As you command, Commander. We will cooperate fully. The night passed without incident. The shared watch, rigorous and alert, ensured no opportunist or lurking bandit could approach. The silence of the forest was broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves, the distant call of a night creature, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of sleeping men. The first golden rays of dawn pierced through the eastern sky, painting the clearing in hues of rose and gold, as the combined column resumed its march. The wounded prisoners, still on stretchers or assisted by their unharmed comrades, continued their slow progress. 2 hours later, the familiar, imposing walls of Castillo's rose into view. A murmur rippled through the approaching ranks. Word of their arrival, and perhaps a garbled account of the battle, must have preceded them. As they drew closer, the main gate, usually a bustling hub of commerce, was wide open, and a crowd of citizens had already gathered, their faces a mixture of curiosity, fear, and anticipation. Standing at the forefront, resplendent in his polished bronze cuirass, crimson cloak, and plumed helmet, a spitting image of a Roman consul on campaign, was Consul Valerius Editanorum himself. Flanking him were officers of the Castillo's legion, their expressions a mix of grim determination and barely concealed awe. The consul, known for his imposing presence, looked even more formidable on this day. As Robert's column drew abreast of the gate, Robert stepped forward, bringing Master Ilara with him. "Consul Valerius," Robert announced, his voice carrying clearly, "I present Master Ilara, leader of this caravan. He and his brave merchants have endured a harrowing ordeal, but are now safely within your protection." Valerius's stern gaze softened slightly as he looked at Ilara, then turned to the gathered public, his voice booming. "People of Castillo's, look upon these brave men. These are the Vesperian vanguard, led by Commander Robert Lake, who have successfully escorted Master Ilara's caravan to safety, after a perilous journey." He then addressed Ilara directly, his voice swelling with pride. "Master Ilara, welcome to Castillo's. Bring your goods safely into the city. Know that Castillo stands ready to receive you, and to protect all who seek honest trade within our borders." Then, his gaze fell upon the bedraggled, wounded captives being led in by the legionnaires. His eyes, initially stern, widened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as he took in the sheer number and the method of their transport. "And look upon these, citizens." Valerius's voice resonated with newfound gravitas, tinged with menace. "These are the perpetrators. These are the villains who sought to prey upon the innocent. But they have been vanquished. Commander Lake, with but a handful of loyal men, has brought them to justice." The consul then turned to the gathered officers and the public, his hand sweeping towards a large contingent of soldiers, now fully arrayed behind him, their polished armor glinting in the morning sun. "And know this, people. Half of our glorious Castillo's legion stands assembled. Ready to move. Ready to sweep clean the roads. Ready to protect every man, woman, and child under the Imperium's banner. Let the enemies of Castillo's tremble. For the might of the consul is at hand." The crowd erupted in cheers, a wave of relief and renewed confidence washing over them. As the caravan slowly rumbled through the gate, the legionnaires, under the direction of their officers, began to receive the prisoners. Robert, his men weary but proud, halted his detachment before the consul. "Commander Lake," Valerius said, his voice dropping to a more intimate, yet still powerfully resonant, tone. He clasped Robert's shoulder, his grip firm. "An astounding feat truly. To have handled such a force, with so few men. I am most impressed. And these prisoners." He gestured to the flow of captives being led away. "This is quite the haul. A complete turnover, as I understand it." "Indeed, Consul," Robert replied, offering a crisp, efficient bow. "All captured enemy personnel, living and dead, are accounted for. They are yours to process." Valerius's smile broadened, a rare, genuine expression. "Excellent. The details, Commander. I want them all. But not here, not now. Come, Robert. Tonight, we will drink. We will celebrate this victory, and you will regale me with the full account. This, I dare say, warrants the finest vintage in my cellar." Robert, though appreciative, subtly shifted. "Consul," he began, a small, knowing wink accompanying his words, "while the honor of drinking with you would be unparalleled, I must confess, a different duty calls me first. My wife, Akina, awaits. and she has certain duties of her own, which I am most eager to fulfill after such a long and arduous campaign." Valerus chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. He clapped Robert on the shoulder again, a knowing glint in his eye. "Naughty boy, Commander! Your zeal for domesticity is as commendable as your prowess in battle. Very well. Go. But I expect a full report, with every detail, every nuance, as soon as you are refreshed. Do not fail me." "It will be on your desk, Consul, with the next rising of the sun," Robert affirmed. "See to it, then." Valerus commanded, turning to his legion officers. "Receive the prisoners. Treat the wounded. And ensure Commander Lake's men are given all courtesies before they return to their quarters." Robert turned to his men. "All right, boys. We'll assist the Legion with the turnover. But listen closely, keep your crossbows. Guard them. These are not common arms, they are complex systems. We won't have them misplaced or borrowed." His gaze was firm, ensuring they understood the value and the need for secrecy. "Once the turnover is complete, you're dismissed. Go home. Rest. You've earned it." The smell of familiar herbs and simmering stew enveloped Robert as he stepped into his modest home within the military district of Castillos. The door opened, and Akina stood there, her dark hair falling loosely around her shoulders, her eyes lighting up at the sight of him. A soft gasp escaped her lips, and she rushed forward, throwing her arms around his neck. "Robert! You're safe. I heard, the rumors were wild. But you're here." Her voice was thick with relief. He held her close, burying his face in her hair, inhaling the comforting scent of home. "I'm here, love. A little worse for wear, but whole." Akina pulled back, her hands gently touching his face, checking for injuries. "Come, my husband. You must be famished." She bustled about, serving him, her movements a comforting balm after the chaos of the past days. There was freshly baked bread, a rich vegetable and meat stew, and a flask of cool water. She ate little herself, content to watch him, listening intently as he recounted, in broad strokes, the ambush and the unexpected victory. He omitted the M4, of course, a secret to be shared only when absolutely necessary. Later that night, with the day's events finally receding, Akina poured them both a glass of dark, local wine. The simple glow of their bedside lamp cast soft shadows on the walls of their matrimonial chamber. The tension that had held Robert captive for days began to truly dissipate under Akina's gentle touch. They spoke little, their communication flowing in the silent language of intimacy and relief. In the quiet sanctity of their bed, they found solace and connection, performing their duties to each other, a reaffirmation of life and love amidst the encroaching shadows of war. The next morning, refreshed and clad in a clean tunic, Robert reported to the consul's office. Valerus, already at his large wooden desk, looked up, a glint of anticipation in his eye. "Commander Lake," the consul greeted, gesturing to a comfortable chair opposite him. "Punctual, as always." "Good. I have also called for a scribe, so your account can be recorded accurately. This information is too vital to rely solely on memory." He nodded to a thin man already seated at a smaller table in the corner, quill poised over parchment. "Thank you, Consul," Robert said, taking his seat. "The more precise the record, the better." He took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. "Consul, my report will detail the full scope of what we uncovered. This was not merely a bandit pack, it was an orchestrated attack, guided by a larger network led by a merchant named Kailas." He then proceeded to narrate the entire intelligence-gathering process, the initial interrogations, the inconsistencies he detected, and his own psychological approach with Zephyr. He explained how Zephyr's desperation for his family led to the revelation of Kailas as the true orchestrator, controlling not just this pack but other gangs, coordinating raids, and selling stolen goods through a legitimate-looking warehouse in Valerus's crossing. "Our intelligence indicates," Robert stated, leaning forward, "that Kailas is not just a fence. He supplied the free riders with information, guiding this specific caravan into our ambush site under the pretense of a safer route." He detailed the revelations from Lucius and Corvus, cross-referencing their confessions to build a damning picture of Kailas's ambition, to control all Vesperian trade, undermine the Imperium, and establish a new, independent power. His network is extensive, Consul, Robert continued, outlining the contacts. He has alliances with hostile lords in the northern mountains, Chief Borin of the Mountain Clans and Lord Kalen of the Iron Hills, supplying them with weapons and coin to raid imperial outposts. He also deals with disgraced Tyrian merchants, notably one Thorn from Viridian Coast, to move his larger shipments and gather intelligence. He paused, then delivered the critical piece of recent intel. And most importantly, Consul, the last intelligence gathered from the captive, Lucius, indicated that Kylus departed from his main stronghold, the Serpent's Coil, yesterday, heading south towards Viridian Coast. He was going to meet with this Thorn to plan the next major move. Robert then took out his detailed map. Consul, based on the prisoner's descriptions, I've plotted the probable location of the Serpent's Coil. He pointed to a spot deep in the northern peaks, beyond the Broken Tooth Gulch waterfall. It is described as a fortress, carved into the very mountainside, accessible by only a single treacherous path. Almost impregnable, they claim. He looked directly at Valerus. My assessment, Consul, is that this is the heart of his operations, where his wealth and his most loyal adherents reside. With Kylus currently on the move, likely to Viridian Coast, this presents us with a two-pronged opportunity. Firstly, Robert continued, tapping the map. A swift, decisive strike on Viridian Coast could capture Kylus before he has a chance to solidify his next major plan, cutting off the head of this serpent. We would need intelligence from within the city to pinpoint Thorn's location and Kylus's exact whereabouts. Secondly, Robert then shifted his finger to the Serpent's Coil. While Kylus is away, his stronghold, though formidable, might be vulnerable. It is a long, difficult march, as the prisoners attested, and only a few truly know the true path without getting lost. We would need the captives who know parts of the route, perhaps even Zephyr, to guide a specialized force. He met the Consul's gaze. To capture him, Consul, is to unravel his entire network. To strike the Serpent's Coil is to dismantle his base of power. We have the intelligence. Now, we need the coordinated action.